Hi guys, this is the fourth and final part of the video, Test Your Knowledge, Theories of Personality. I'm so excited to know kung ano ang mga scores nyo. Again, if may questions kayo, clarifications, feedback, you can comment down everything below or send me an email. I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. If you're new in this channel, make sure not to skip the first 3 parts of this segment para makasabay ka. Link in the description box below. Para naman sa mga nakapag-take na, let's begin the fourth and final round ng test. Number 76. Advertising as a technique of social control designed to manipulate people to purchase a certain product is an example of A. Operant conditioning, B. Describing contingencies, C. Deprivation and satiation, or D. Classical conditioning. And the correct answer is letter B. Describing contingencies. Again, it's not operant conditioning. Kasi you have to behave first, and it's a very broad thing. You have to behave, and then ito yung magiging consequence. So, class, it happens real time, no? Na kunwari, tinaas mo yung kamay mo, and then makakakuha ka ng candy. Operant conditioning. Classical condition naman when you pair two stimulus together to generate a certain response. So, deprivation and satiation, ibig sabihin, tinatanggal yung reward, no? Or binibigay. That's an example of deprivation and satiation. So, kunwari, binibigyan ka ng ayuda, that's an example of satiation. So, it's a form of social control. Kasi, kunwari, binigay yung ayuda para maiwasan na magprotesta yung mga tao. Kasi nga naman, kung wala na silang makain, there might be social chaos. Kino-control yung human behavior para maiwasan yung isang particular thing. Describing contingencies meaning sinasabi yung consequences. Like the law, right? If you kill someone, makukulong ka for life, or in much extreme societies, papatay ka din. Like an eye for an eye. And sa advertising, pinapabili ka ng product with a promise. Right? There's always a promise. There's no advertising kung walang promise. Skinner believed that blank is most likely to be used where escape and revolt have failed. A. Passive resistance, B. Active resistance, C. Self-punishment, or D. Blocking out reality. And the correct answer is letter A. Passive resistance. So, meron tayong tinatawag na counteracting strategies as a way of resisting against conditioning, no? And according to Skinner, may tatlo. We have escape, revolt, and passive resistance. So, imagine mo nasa trabaho ka. Ang escape, dahil di mo gusto yung trabaho, nag-resign ka. You went away from the control, social controls. Revolt, sumali ka ng union, no? Sumali ka ng union, nagre-rebel kayo against the company. And passive resistance naman, yan yung puro ka chismis, sinisiraan mo yung kumpanya, nagnanakaw ka ng office supplies. So, may pagka-passive-aggressive yung approach. So, that's passive resistance. And yung letter C and D, that's what we call inappropriate behaviors. Nangyayari yan kapag nasusobra sa social control. So, in a way, yan yung nagiging behavior ng mga taong may mental disorders, no? Nasobrahan yung effect ng environment sa kanila. So, merong excessively vigorous behavior, tulad nung may mga bulimia, let's say, na nagpo-purge sila and after nila kumain ng marami, nag-exercise ng sobra-sobra. And meron excessively restrained, as you can see in anorexia, na halos hindi na kumain. And we have blocking out reality. So, kunwari, meron kang unwanted impulses, no? So, sa halip na mag-focus ka dun sa reality na yun, nagbibilang ka ng 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Para mawala yun. So, you're blocking it out. Self-delusions, so yan yung may mga messiah complex, yung nagiging narcissistic, and self-punishment, yan naman yung mga nagsi-self-harm. So those are the inappropriate behaviors according to Skinner. Which of the following situations would result to depression? A. High self-efficacy, unresponsive environment. B. Low self-efficacy, unresponsive environment. C. High self-efficacy, responsive environment. Or D. Low self-efficacy, responsive environment. And the correct answer is letter D. Low self-efficacy, responsive environment. Now we're asking with Bandura's theory, no? So with different combinations, it results with different results. For instance, you're a great artist and the society rewards that. You know, like in Renaissance, artists are highly paid because the governments and the people are willing to recognize it and pay for it. It results to success. High self-efficacy and unresponsive environment. An example of this are the nurses. Right? They believe that they can earn money, that they can succeed in this profession, that what they're doing is worth doing. But since mababa yung sweldo sa bansa natin, either makarinig ka ng protesta in terms of labor force, or they go abroad. Right? They migrate. They search for new environment. So that's an example of high self-efficacy and low unresponsive environment. Low self-efficacy and responsive environment results to depression. In short, again, let's focus in a single, in particulars. Ang profession mo, psychology, and really, the society rewards good psychologists. But then, for some reason, you're just not good enough. And you don't believe that you can be a good psychologist, or wala kang self-confidence to achieve your goals. Because that's basically self-efficacy, no? You have this confidence that you have the ability to achieve what you want or your desired result. And if wala ka nun, if you don't have that confidence, according to Bandura, it results to depression. Another is in low self-efficacy and unresponsive environment. So ito naman yung hindi ka naman confident na makaka-achieve ka and wala namang paki talaga yung environment. So again, artist, let's say you feel like you're not a good artist, right? Wala kang confidence that you can be a great artist, that you can make it. And unresponsive din yung environment. Like for instance, in oppressive regimes, sinusuppress na yung art that goes against the ideology of the oppressor. So it results into apathy, resignation, and helplessness. So wala ka na lang paki. Jose is a student from RGO. One day, he arrived 30 minutes late for the lecture on theories of personality. He wanted to sit in front to learn and listen more, but he was forced to sit at the back where he met Josephine, the love of his life. This is an example of A, destiny, B, chance encounter, C, fortuitous event, or D, fortuitous encounter. And the correct answer is letter B, chance encounter. So this is a concept of Albert Bandura, no? So destiny, wala niya, walang destiny. Unless we're talking about Rollemay, kung saan, kuwari, pinanganak ang Filipino, destiny mo na yun. Hindi yung blood mo Filipino, yung nationality mo Filipino. Although pwede ka mag-change ng citizenship, your blood mo, dahil Filipino yung parents mo, you are a Filipino blood. So that's an example of destiny. And fortuitous encounter, walang ganyan. Keme-keme ko lang yan. Invento ko lang yan. Fortuitous event, again, it's an event. So yan naman yung mga event na pumabor sa'yo. No? Kunwari, yung kay Isang, na nag-a-apply siya sa physics, nagkamali yung bureaucracy nung ina-applyan niyang college nang binigay sa kanyang exam. Tapos nag-qualify lang siya to attend psychology. And he became one of the most prolific psychologists. In fact, nasa theories of personality siya at pinag-uusapan siya hanggang ngayon. So that's an example of fortuitous event. Chance encounter naman is about people. No? So again, Jose met Josephine, the love of his life, as a result of this encounter. And they met in random pattern. It wasn't na hindi naman sila nag-usap or nireto nung kaibigan. It's just a random occurrence na nagkataon na magkasama sila sa RGO and then nagkita sila. Just chance encounter. So the major difference is encounter is people. There's a meeting between people. Event is about what happened. So kapag may people na involved, it's chance encounter. Kapag wala, event. The ultimate goal of social cognitive therapy is blank. A. Self-regulation, B. Self-realization, C. Cognitive restructuring, or D. Self-efficacy. And the correct answer is letter A. Self-regulation. This is the concept of Bandura, no? And according to Bandura, self-regulation is a result of high self-efficacy, high confidence in proxies, and high collective efficacy. So again, high self-efficacy is your confidence that you can achieve your desired results. So maybe naniniwala ka na kaya mo maging top-notcher, so you have high self-efficacy. Confidence in proxies, it means naniniwala ka that you can rely on people. Di ka marunong magluto, pero confident ka na yung mga tao sa bahay nyo, maasahan mo magluto para sa'yo. So confident ka na may mga tutulong sa'yo. And high collective efficacy is naniniwala ka that you and the people around you can make a socially significant difference. Na as a collective community, you can achieve a desired result. Maybe, kunwari, tulad ng feminist movement na they believed that one way or another, they can remove the oppression of women that was created in the West. So, paano ito na-achieve, no? So, first, you instigate a specific change, and the individual would generalize those changes, and the individual would maintain those changes. For instance, mahihain ka. And then, you decided, I'm gonna be an assertive person. So, you read books about being assertive, you attended seminars, you watched videos, and you really confronted your shyness and naging assertive na person ka. And that assertiveness resulted into confidence. So, na-generalize mo siya, no? Naging assertive ka in socially, pero naging assertive ka rin in terms of finances. And naging assertive ka rin in terms of academic and career goals na magiging top-notcher ka and you're gonna be a great psychologist. You're going to contribute to the field significantly. So, yung specific na yun na-generalize mo, and then you maintain. When we say maintain, you kept that behavior. You kept being assertive. Hindi ka nag-relapse into being shy. According to Bandura, depression is caused by A. Person, B. Environment, C. Behavioral factors, or D. All of the above. And the correct answer is letter D. All of the above. And according to Bandura's theory, we have this concept called triadic reciprocal causation. Anything that we try to explain in terms of human personality must be explained in terms of these three factors. They reciprocate each other. Meaning, personal factors, mostly cognitive, the way you think would influence your environment. Maybe the way you arrange your room. Kuwari, mahilig ka sa psychology. So, yung room mo, yung environment mo, punong-puno ngayon ng psychology books. And since the way you think that you really like psychology would influence your behavior, na ang tendency mo is manood ng seminars regarding psychology or bumili ng books. And again, at the same time, since yung behavior na yun, nagbabasa ka ng books sa psychology, it will change the person, the way you think. Right? And so again, yung environment mo, dahil nagbago yung paraan mo para mag-isip, it will change your environment. You will be meeting people na interested din sa psychology. And these people will change again the way you think and the way you behave. So, may interaction between the three of them. Blank refers to how people construe or categorize an event. A. Construction corollary, B. Dichotomy corollary, C. Encoding strategies, or D. Self-regulating strategies. And the correct answer is letter C. Encoding strategies. What is encoding strategy? So, if you remember, in your basic psychology, we have these processes in memory na encoding, storage, and retrieval, right? So, that's just the way it is. Encoding. For instance, right now, you're listening to me, and then maybe you're trying to remember number 82 na. A, B, C, D. Ito na yung sagot. Or, kunwari, binigyan kita ng 091523463734. So, that's a phone number, right? So, if you think about it, phone number. Or I say apple, fruits, banana, orange, and you say, now he's talking about fruits. Then you're trying to understand and interpret what I'm saying and making your own meaningful connections. That's encoding strategy. So how is this different from construction corollary? If I ask you if it's a personal constructs, then dalawa yung magiging sagot dito sa question because encoding strategies and personal constructs overlap. They are ways of looking at things and events. But construction corollary is much more about similarities among events. So when I say, there will be a rainy morning tomorrow, before you can understand that, you have to have your own concept of rainy morning. And you will use that and replicate that same theme to anticipate the event, that rainy morning. And then maybe you will behave in such a way in accordance to that anticipation. So maybe papasok ang school, so dahil alam mong maulan bukas, magdadala ka ng payong. We have this way of thinking about things by thinking about their similarities. But they're not exactly alike because no rainy morning is exactly alike. But we act as if they're similar. Dichotomy is about either or, right? Light, dark, person or not person, things or not things. So we have a way of thinking about these things in terms of dichotomy. So that's how we form our personal constructs, is that when you say something is, you also claim that something is not. Self-regulating strategies, well, it's how you control your behavior. So perhaps sinabihan kita, huwag kang iinom ng tubig na to.
And then you tell yourself, nag-isip ka bigla, 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6. So, gumagawa ka ng sarili mong technique para magawa mo yung behavior na gusto mo. So, that's a self-regulating strategy. Blank is the degree to which a person prefers one set of reinforcement to another. A. Need value. B. Reinforcement value. C. Need potential. Or D. Reinforcement potential. And the correct answer is letter A, need value. So we have here two things. We are talking about reinforcement and need. So when we talk about reinforcement, we are talking about specific things. So for instance, may vending machine, tapos gusto mo ng soft drinks, kung ano yung bibilhin mo doon, whichever it is, that's an example of reinforcement value. Kung ano yung piniprefer mo doon over those options. But when we make a set of reinforcement values, it becomes need value. So in short, when we say need value, it's just, a set of reinforcements. So kung isa lang siya, kung isa lang yung reward, it's a reinforcement. But kung marami sila, it's a need. So kunwari, need for love. So may iba't ibang reinforcement, no? Attention, acceptance, physical comfort, sex, approval. So these kinds of reinforcements, dahil marami sila, it becomes what we call need value. Now, what is the difference between behavior potential and need potential? Again, it's all about the set. If it's a behavior potential, it's a specific scenario. For instance, how likely are you to fall asleep while listening to this Test Your Knowledge segment? So it's specific, falling asleep. But need potential is about how likely are you to pursue love, right? So if mataas yung need potential sa'yo ng love, mataas yung need potential sa'yo nung isang bagay, more likely you will do a set of behavior related to that. Dahil mataas ang need potential mo for love, tumatambay ka madalas sa Tinder, or naghahanap ka lagi ng partner para ma-meet mo yung need. So it's just a matter of set. Which of the following is not an assumption of Rotter's social learning theory? A. Human personality is determined by social factors. B. Humans interact with their meaningful environment. C. Personality has a basic unity. Or D. Motivation is goal-directed. And the correct answer is letter A. Human personality is determined by social factors. So let's discuss first the several assumptions. First one is that humans interact with their meaningful environment. So ang una nito is dinidebunk niya na yung concept ng behaviorism, no? Na it's all about stimulus response. What it's saying is we are an agent, no? We can act. So, kunwari, if you don't like your house where you live right now, it's not like you're bound there. Like you can change where you live. So you are interacting with your environment. Second, human personality is learned. We can change and we can grow and we can revert back to where we were. So it's debunking the idea of Ising's biologically trait theory. Second, personality has a basic unity. Well, this is a necessary assumption. Because if there's no basic unity, there's no way we can understand why we behave the way we do, or there's no point in studying it if it's not unified. If it's impossible to make order out of this set of behavior. So, it's one of the assumptions. Motivation is goal-directed. So, we don't just act, no? We have purposes, we have goals, whether we are aware of it or not. A man might be protective of his wife, yet encourage her to be more independent. This exemplifies which of the following corollaries? A. Dichotomy. B. Fragmentation. C. Individuality. Or D. Choice. And the correct answer is letter B. Fragmentation. Individuality, it means every one of us has a different way of looking. If I ask you a dog, even though we have this prototype and an image of what a dog is, when we think about dogs, all of us would be different in that sense. So that's individuality. Choice, meaning we choose from our constructs. So, right now you have a choice whether you could continue listening here or you could stop the video. Or you could answer the drills or you could not answer the drills. And we choose on that depending on the way we anticipate the future. Maybe you're taking on this drill and listening to this because you anticipate that it will help you pass the board exam. So that's choice. basically we choose from our constructs. So fragmentation allows us to hold contradictions in our constructs. So like this one, a man might be protective of his wife yet encourage her to be more independent. This dichotomy between being protective and encouraging independence could be subsumed in the concept called love. Right? We are capable of holding these seemingly contradictory things, but they merge together in a way that it makes sense, and we call that love.
Break time. So, if there's one book I would recommend any aspiring psychology professional would read, I would recommend the book The Art of Loving by Erich Fromm. And here's why. The most significant books are the ones that change the way you think. And when I was in college, that was the first time I read Erich Fromm's The Art of Loving. It really changed the way I think about love. Because dati, actually ako, naniniwala ako dun sa mga culture na hanapin mo yung the one, tapos pag nahanap mo yung the one, okay na, magiging masaya ka na kasi nahanap mo na yung happy ever after mo. Cheesy, right? But then, when I read Erich Fromm's book, nakita ko na hindi pala ganun. We should really treat love as an art form. That which we must practice, that we must commit to, and meron din talaga siyang elements and ideas that you must constantly apply if you really want to become a loving person. So the key takeaway is, do not focus on finding true love. Focus on becoming a truly loving person. It's really liberating because you are the one in control. It's a really short book, and I think you will enjoy it because he really wrote it for the layman, so walang masyadong technical terms.
According to Kelly, the following are the common elements of human disturbance, except A. Threat, B. Anxiety, C. Vulnerability, or D. Guilt. And the correct answer is letter C. Vulnerability. So again, in psychology, you must always remember that we are trying to learn a new language. We're trying to learn a new systems of meaning. In short, if you read your TOP, the way you think about anxiety should change. The way you think about guilt should change, and the way you think about all these choices should change. Because every theorist would have a different definition. Merong mga ganitong differences na isang term lang siya pero magkakaiba siya ng meaning. And we must always take note of that and be aware of those differences. Threat is awareness of imminent comprehensive change in one's behavior. So, for instance, nagda-drive ka, na-realize mo na baka makabangga ka, pero di ka natatakot na baka maka-injure ka or mabother ka dun sa na gumastos ka para magpa-ospital, but rather natatakot kang maging kriminal. So, you are from an honest citizen to a criminal, right? If you experience that feeling na, oh my God, baka maging criminal ako, what you're experiencing right there is threat. Anxiety naman is when events lie outside the person's range of convenience. So it means, for instance, you've never been in a public speaking scenario, right? You've never talked in front of an audience. For you, that's not part of your skill set, your behavior that you believe you are capable of. In short, you're outside the range of your convenience. So when you go to the stage, what you experience right then and there is anxiety. It's not stage fright, although that's what we typically call it. When you ask Kelly, he will say that's anxiety because you're outside your range of personal convenience. So guilt is the sense of having lost one's core role structure. So you have this sense of who you are. So for instance, you think of yourself as a brilliant student and then you wrote an essay na half-heartedly. So, kung ano lang yung pumasok sa isip mo, hindi ka nag-research, hindi mo inayos yung references mo, mema ka lang, tapos sinabmit mo siya. So, yung feeling na yun, yung feeling na na-experience mo, bago mo siya isubmit, aside from the grades na makukuha mo, yung feeling na yun na kahit nga siguro maka-A+ ka doon, you wouldn't feel satisfied because you are feeling guilty. Because you did something that goes against who you think you are. That's guilt. People's behaviors are directed by the way they see the future. Which theorist is being described here? A. Kelly, B. Adler, C. Allport, or D. Maslow? And the correct answer is letter A. Kelly. So So again, you might argue that, ba't hindi si Adler? Eh, di ba teleological si Adler? Di ba it's about final goal? Yes, but then what I'm asking about is the way they see the future. It's much more general. If I ask you if people behave because of the way they perceive their final goal, or because of inferiority feelings, that would be Adler. But for Kelly, the major explanation is the way they see the future. And of course, it's not Allport, because Allport accept conscious motivation. Allport would just say people behave because they just feel like it. It's okay. So what, right? Or because of their certain traits that they have. And Maslow would say people behave because of their needs. Instinctoid needs, the hierarchy of needs, the triangle. Kelly's notion of role is introduced from which of the following corollary? A. Sociality, B. Individuality, C. Commonality, or D. Rep test. The correct answer is letter A, sociality. So obviously, I'm asking about corollary, so hindi siya rep test, because rep test is not a corollary. It's the way it's about identifying the way we construe significant people in our lives. Commonality is about that which makes people similar. And individuality is that it acknowledges the differences among us. So when we say commonality, if I ask you, who is the current president of the Philippines? We all have a common answer as of this moment. But we may have a different way of thinking and construing the current president. So that's where individuality comes in. And sociality, kung mapapansin mo, lahat ng corollary prior to sociality, when you read Feist and Feist, it's all about the individual. It means that we are capable of communicating our constructs. And of course, since it applies to us, others have their own personal constructs as well, and the sociality corollary applies to them, they can also communicate their personal constructs to us. And the sociality corollary would tell us that we are capable of thinking about what other people think. And we can establish that in terms of our relationships. Teacher and student. Pag pumasok ka ng klase, nakaupo ka lang, nakikinig ka, tahimik ka for an hour, as if wala kang kausap, and then nagsusulat ka ng notes, we can explain that behavior based on the concept of role, na you are playing the role of the student. So that's sociality. Arlene is currently bargaining with Feynman, a used car dealer. However, she had never experienced negotiating with another person over a large amount of money. This experience, therefore, is outside her range of convenience. Arlene is most likely to experience blank. A. Anxiety, B. Discomfort, C. Threat, or D. Fear. The correct answer is letter A, anxiety. Again, anxiety means you are in a situation where you are outside the range of your convenience. Since we said that she's never done this before, she's never experienced this, she's never negotiated over a large amount of money, then it's anxiety. Now the question is, what's the difference between threat and fear? So fear is much more specific. You drive fast enough, the road becomes slippery, and you almost crash. So you almost died. Kung ano man yung na-experience mo during that moment na medyo madulas yung daan, that's fear. Pero kung nag-drive ka ng mabilis, naisip mo baka makapatay ka and maging kriminal ka, then there's this change in your identity. Significant change that will happen to who you are from a citizen, honest citizen, to a criminal. Then that is threat. Discomfort, lying discomfort, gawa-gawa ko lang. Oppenheimer, a physics enthusiast, had to pretend that he hates physics because all people in the party are explicitly expressing their hate for the subject. In this scenario, Oppenheimer is most likely to experience A. Anxiety, B. Vulnerability, C. Guilt, or D. Threat. The correct answer is letter C, guilt. So again, as I've explained earlier, guilt is when you act inconsistently with who you think you are. Since he loves physics and he really enjoys it and is now acting as if he doesn't like it, then he would experience whatever that feeling he experiences, that discomfort, that would be what we call guilt. According to Kelly, threat is blank while fear is blank. A. comprehensive, specific, and incidental. B, specific and incidental, comprehensive. C, imaginary, real. Or D, real, imaginary. The correct answer is letter A, comprehensive, specific, and incidental. So again, as I've said in the previous question, threat is when there is this possibility that who you are will change. Your personal identity will change from honest citizen to criminal. While fear is much more specific. You drive fast enough, the road becomes slippery, and you almost crash your car. So that sensation is fear. So if it's about identity, again, it's who you are. So it's a set of whole personal construct system. Then it's comprehensive. You experience threat. So it's about belief. Maybe naniniwala ka talaga, sobrang tagal mo ng liberal, and then somehow may kausap ka na sobrang solid ng reasoning sa conservative political view. So yung nafe-feel mong yun na discomfort, that is threat. Kasi may possibility na magbago yung belief system mo and magbabago yung identity and who you think you are. Whereas fear is about a specific object. So kung takot ka sa aso, so it's very specific and incidental na kung nakita kang tao, nanginginig ka, or maybe in terms of phobia, ina-arrange mo na yung buhay mo para talaga umiwas dun sa object of your fear. Psychological disorders are caused by either childhood experiences or by future events. Which of the following theorists would object to this statement? A. Kelly, B. Costa and McRae, C. Adler, or D. Skinner? And the correct answer is letter A, Kelly. So what I'm asking here is about either childhood experiences or by future events. So we established that Adler would argue that childhood experiences can be the source of psychological disorder. So it's not Adler. Costa and McRae as well, it's not Costa and McRae because our characteristic adaptations could be the result of our objective biography, which affects our self-concept, which of course could result to low self-esteem because yung self-concept mo dahil sa mga na-experience mo noon, bababa yung feeling of value mo. So again, nangyari na depressed ka. So psychological disorders can be explained by childhood experiences as well because it shaped your objective biography, shaped your characteristic adaptations to the world. And one of the extreme cases here are for the cases of yung mga obese na it turns out may mga tao na kinikip nila yung obesity nila as a function to protect themselves from attracting men because they were traumatized when they were children. And for Skinner would argue that psychological disorders could be explained by the person's history of reinforcement. You're currently doing what you're doing right now because of the reinforcement you experienced before. So whether it's classified as psychological disorders, maybe yung factitious disorder kung saan nagpapanggap kang may sakit ka, and so you were reinforced by that na pag nagkakasakit ka, people give you attention. So it's not Skinner because all of them could explain childhood experiences. A person's construction system exists in the present, not the past or future. Kung may psychological disorder, they cannot be explained by childhood experiences or future events, but rather only by the present because dun lang naman nag-exist yung personal construct ng tao. The purpose of the rep test is to discover ways in which people construe important blank in their lives. A. People, B. Events, C. Things, or D. Feelings. The correct answer is letter A. People. So this is just a question of definition. So tinatanong lang naman kung ano ba yung rep test. So it's about how you construe significant people in your lives. Kelly would use this as a way to provide direction in his therapy. And the difference between rep test and fixed role therapy is that in fixed role therapy, a client would assume a role and test it out in therapy as well as outside. So maybe kung sobrang mahihain ka, you would assume the role of an extroverted person in therapy, and then Kelly would encourage you to do it outside. And then, of course, it will change your personal construct because you will experience different situations and different results, and it would change the way you think. So that's fixed role therapy. 11 corollaries are derived from this one fundamental postulate. A. Constructive alternativism. B. Basic postulate. C. The first postulate. Or D. personal constructs postulate. The correct answer is letter B, basic postulate. Wala naman tong first postulate and yung personal constructs postulate. So, gawa-gawa ko lang yan. And constructive alternativism is one of the assumptions in which whatever it is that we're looking at, there are many ways to look at it. Right? So, it's not what we are looking at, it's what we see. It's similar to Adler's creative power. So, in Kelly's words, the events we face today are subject to as great variety of constructions as our wits will enable us to contrive. So it just tells us that there are many ways of looking at the world and we can change the way we look. That's it. That's why it's constructive alternativism. The word construct and then alternate. There are alternative constructs. There are alternative ways of looking and interpreting the world. It's constructive alternativism. The basic postulate states that a person's processes is psychologically channelized by the way we anticipate events. In short, we behave, we feel, and we think because of the way we anticipate events. And there are corollaries that followed from that. So the unhealthy individual, according to Kelly, unhealthy individuals stubbornly cling to outdated personal constructs, fearing validation of any new constructs that would upset their present comfortable view of the world. Any personal construction which is used repeatedly in spite of consistent invalidation. So, for instance, sa relationships mo, sobrang seloso, and naka-limang relationship ka na, lahat hinihiwalayan ka kasi sobrang seloso mo, nakakasakal ka lagi. So, that's an example of an unhealthy person kasi alam mong hindi na nagwo-work yung construction mo and yung behavior mo, pero ginagamit mo pa rin siya paulit-ulit. So, the way to become a healthy individual is to first acknowledge what is not working in your life and then fix that. Number 95. Blank ay tumutukoy sa damdamin at kaalamang nararanasan. A. Diwa, B. Isip, C. Ulirat, or D. Kamalayan. And the correct answer is letter D. Kamalayan. So, this is just a question of definition. So ang ulirat, awareness of one's surroundings. Kamalayan, so it's more like much deeper. It's more on consciousness, no? And isip, in English, kung thought, right? Isip, kaalaman at pag-unawa. Thought and knowledge. Thought and understanding. And diwa, it's much closer to attitudes and behavior and mannerisms. Blank ang bawat teorya ng sino mang nais mag-aral tungkol sa kalikasang psikolohiya ng mga Pilipinong naninirahan sa Pilipinas maging sa ibang bansa. A. Psikolohiyang Pilipino, B. Psikolohiya sa Pilipinas, C. Psikolohiya ng mga Pilipino, or D. Psikolohiya para sa Pilipino. The correct answer is letter C. Psikolohiya ng mga Pilipino. So kapag ang pinag-aaral natin mga Pilipino, it doesn't matter where they are and it doesn't matter kung saan galing yung nag-aaral. Pag nakita mo yung word na tungkol sa mga Pilipino, psikolohiya ng mga Pilipino yan. Kapag sinabing psikolohiya sa Pilipinas, ibig sabihin we're talking about the place. And ang psikolohiyang Pilipino naman, tentative lang yung binigay na definition ni Enriquez, pero ito ay psikolohiyang bunga ng karanasan, kaisipan, at oryentasyong Pilipino.
Blank ay tumutukoy sa ugali, kilos, o asal. A. Isip, B. Ulirat, C. Diwa, or D. Kamalayan. And the correct answer is letter C. Diwa. So ito lang naman yung mga rudimentary concepts sa psikolohiyang Pilipino and this is just a question of definition. So wala na tayong masyadong elaboration dito, tinatanong lang naman ko anong definition nung term. So yan yung definition ng diwa. Blank ang tumutukoy sa ating pakiramdam sa paligid. A. Isip, B. Ulirat, C. Diwa, or D. Kamalayan. And the correct answer is letter B, ulirat. So again, we are just asking here for the definition. Kasi itong apat na to, since last question na siya about this topic, we are talking here about the scope of psikolohiyang Pilipino. So, 6 yan, no? Kamalayan, isip, diwa, ulirat, merong kalooban, at kaluluwa. Yun yung one of the reason kung bakit na-create yung Wikang Pilipino is ini-investigate natin yung mga concept na to. Unlike sa psychology ng West na nakafocus sa human behavior. So, based dun sa linguistic analysis nga ng wika at kultura, na pagtanto na ang anim na to, ito yung scope na pwede nating pag-aralan kapag nag-aral tayo ng Psikolohiyang Pilipino. Because this is what Psikolohiyang Filipino is all about.
Number 99. Ayon kay Jimenez, 1977, ang mga sumusunod ay tumatalakay kung paano nagagamit ang psikolohiya laban sa interes ng tao. Bukod sa A. Ang tao ay tinitingnan bilang isang individual at hiwalay sa kanyang paligid. B. Ang mga tao ay magkakasing tulad. C. Ang psikolohiya ay hindi kumikiling sa anumang sistema ng pagpapahalaga o isang partikular na uri ng lipunan. Or D. Ang mga tao ay magkakaiba. And the correct answer is letter D. Ang mga tao ay magkakaiba. Pinag-usapan naman dito sa paper na ito ay kung bakit kailangan natin mag-deviate sa Western psychology. Because mostly ng mga theories and mga concepts na inaaral natin sa psychology ay galing sa West, from America or from Europe. And ito yung one of the foundations ng Psikolohiyang Pilipino ay binibigyan tayo ng mga dahilan kung bakit kailangan natin na pag-aralan yung Psikolohiyang Pilipino. Kasi nga, ito nga yung mga nagiging result or epekto ng Western psychology sa atin. Unang-una, hinihiwalay yung tao sa paligid. Like, nung katulad nung Freudian theory na masyadong nakafocus sa unconscious, na hindi mo na tinutunan yung economic and social forces na nag-i-influence sa behavior. Siyempre, meron naman talagang differences sa behavior ng nasa first world country at nasa third world country. Ibang-iba yan. Kasi nga, yung economic resources pa lang na available, iba na. And hindi yun kino-consider ng West. And yun yung gustong i-assimilate, and one of the things na gustong bigyang tuon ng pansin ng Psikolohiyang Pilipino is i-acknowledge natin na umaapekto sa atin yung culture and yung environment natin. Ang mga tao ay magkasing tulad. Again, yung West, nag-focus talaga siya sa universality. You know, personality types, and yung unconscious nga ni Freud, mostly lang minention ito ni Jimenez ay Freudian eh. May kita natin na kung i-assume mo nga na magkakasing tulad ng tao, edi syempre marami kang load and wealth of information na nami-miss kasi you are ignoring a lot of things. Kasi that's what happens when you label it. When you label something, you box it. Right? And pag in-assume mo na magkakasing tulad ng tao, so pwede ka nang gumawa ng solution na one size fits all. But then, it's not the case. All of us are different. Ang psikolohiya hindi kumikiling sa anumang sistema ng pagpapahalaga o isang partikular na uri ng lipunan. So again, kung ang psychology ay study of the individual, bakit nga naman i-assume mo na universal yung mahanap mong theory? But hindi mo isasama yung uri ng lipunan or yung culture kung saan nakapaloob yung tao? Because that influences behavior. And although kay Costa and McRae, kinonsider nila yun in part with their external influences, it wasn't specified on how it affects the individual. And may kita mo nga sa mga concept natin sa Psikolohiyang Pilipino tulad nung kapwa and hiya na embedded talaga sa mga words na to and sa mga concepts na to yung culture and way of life nating mga Filipino. 100. Which of the following is not an accommodative surface value? A. Hiya. B. Pakikiramdam. C. Utang na loob. Or D. Pakikisama. And the correct answer is letter B. Pakikiramdam. So, tatlo lang naman ang accommodative surface value. Ito ay hiya, utang na loob, at pakikisama. So, ang pakikiramdam is what we call the shared inner perception, is that it's a way of interacting with other people. So, it's being sensitive to their signals and the way they are communicating. So, that's what we call pakikiramdam.
That's it! I hope I was able to cover most of your questions in mind. And if not, you can send your questions, suggestions, feedback, or anything in between. The details on your screen and in the description box below. And if you find this helpful, Please share them to anyone who might need them in the future. Magtulungan po tayo. You can also subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified sa next lecture, mock test, and other exciting segments of my channel. Masaya to, promise! Thank you again for watching. This is Rutherford and I hope to see you on my next RPM video. Class dismissed!